This week, the week of April 12, 2020, began with President Trump announcing that only he had the power to reopen the country for business. Coincidentally, or maybe not so, Governor Wolf, along with 4 other Northeast governors, joined New York Governor Andrew Cuomo's press conference on Monday to announce that the 6 governors were collaborating on reopening plans. To clarify, we've been told that the governors may collectively develop reopening standards and protocol, but decisions to reopen will be state by state, and in the case of Pennsylvania, likely county by county, based on the April 16th gating standards announced by the president and Penn State alumnus, Dr. Deborah Birx, we suspect. More on that a bit later. The PRLA moderated 2 calls this week with Senator Casey and calls with Congressman Boyle and Evans. Casey's calls included restaurateurs from Philadelphia on one and Pittsburgh on the other. Joining the congressmen were restaurant and hospitality business owners from their districts. The calls were largely focused on fixes for the Paycheck Protection Program, which are detailed in our letter to the Pennsylvania congressional delegation, which is linked on this update. All the legislators expressed a desire to help the industry. During one of our calls with the National Restaurant Association this week, we discussed 2 new legislative initiatives in addition to fixes for the PPP. Those include a separate restaurant relief fund that would provide working capital to restaurants upon reopening and a federal backstop to allow insurance companies to pay out on business interruption claims. In our call with the American Hotel and Lodging Association, we also reviewed the AHLA administrative initiatives to fix the PPP, including reducing the percentage required for payroll from 75% to 50% and allowing use of funds anytime during the covered period. Coupled with those fixes are legislative fixes to the PPP, presumably in COVID-4, including extending the PPP maximum loan to 8 months for covered costs, and extending the covered period to December 31st, and include 501c6 organizations, which includes many of our destination marketing organizations in the eligibility requirements. These are asks from the AHLA in legislation. By the way, as the week came to a close, the PPP ran out of money. There are intense negotiations underway in Washington to refund the program, and we expect that will happen early next week. This week, we worked with State Senator Hughes on legislation that would require insurance companies to pay out on business interruption insurance. This is at the state level. We'll be holding a joint press conference about this legislation on Monday. PRLA continues efforts to try to get products from the PLCB to its licensees. Pennsylvanians have been denied access to spirits and wine since the closing of the state stores almost a month ago. Restaurants with expanded wine permits could help fill this need if only the PLCB would allow them to get product. PRLA is now pushing a legislative remedy that will likely be dropped next week. This concern is highlighted in a letter to members of the Pennsylvania legislature sent today, along with expanding loan opportunities and suggested fixes to the unemployment insurance process, which would include a program to encourage workers to return to work. We also highlighted the need to prevent business evictions and delaying the remittance of state sales tax. We moderated our weekly destination marketing organizational call so that our friends in the travel and tourism industry can share their best practices in trying to survive this crisis. State Tourism Chief Kerry Lepore joined the group on the call, and Melissa Bova provided her informative and frankly wildly popular weekly update, which happens every Wednesday at 11 a.m. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, while the activities and actions this week have been daunting, maybe the subject of the week has been reopening for business. Even as the 6 Northeast governors held their press conference on Monday, I joined my counterparts of 8 Northeast states to discuss how we can help to shape the reopening plans of our governors. PRLA pulled together a reopening task force to create a document that would add operational input and practicality to a health-driven reopening plan. The group, representing restaurants of virtually every type and size, as well as caterers and hotels, met today to flesh out recommendations, and Governor Wolf's chief of staff has indicated openness to feedback from, quote, subject matter experts, end quote. We're hopeful that our guidelines will dovetail with those of the state health professionals, the Wolf administration, and the President's newly issued recommended opening phases. Of course, I think we all share the desire to get reopened quickly in a safe and sensible way. Thanks for tuning in to this week's edition of It Happened This Week. I look forward to seeing you again next week. In the meantime, remember, PRLA is standing strong for you, and most importantly, stay well.